And we are back. Welcome back to the Bali Wellness Expo. Everybody who's tuning in from Startup Grind networks or my personal networks, we have a very special guest, dear brother from another mother,
Mm.
Sequoia.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Bali Wellness Expo. It's really honored to have you here, representing indigenous innovation, I would say, right?
Right.
Can you
right.
please introduce yourselves and tell us more about how come you're here and what you're doing here? What's happening?
Hey, thank you so much for having me here. I think firstly, I'd like to start off by saying my name is Sequoia. I'm from America, indigenous Oklahoma, Chickasaw Nation. And yeah, about myself, I'm a clinical herbalist. I studied psychology. I've been a liaison for the Austrian and American government. I've been invited to Washington, D.C. twice under the Obama and the Trump administration. I'm a TED Talk speaker. I became known in the microbiome space and my research around the microbiome field, and in building some amazing things that my mind could just conceive, just take it to the next level as far as I can in this life. I'm here at the Bali Wellness and Beauty Expo from an amazing invitation to sit on the stage with other locals, with other people that really care about the wellness and the culture and the beauty of Bali.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So my panel was pretty much on connecting culture, how we can kind of connect culture and kind of keep the culture in everything that we do, and as well as how to be eco-friendly. But I feel like, can I just jump right in?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, I really feel like eco has been so pushed all around the world that people forget the main key elements of everything.
Right.
And it's not just about the environment as far as like earth and doing something with bamboo, but it's so much more than that. It's about the environment is also the culture. It's
The
who we are.
culture, the community,
The
it's all
community.
intervened.
Everything. And we're missing such a large part of that.
And I love what you do in east of Bali. You basically have like a amazing piece of land there, and you work with what's known to be as original Balinese village, which is, I believe, one of the oldest villages here in Bali. And you kind of integrated with their culture to support them, to give reciprocity back. And I just really admire your work in also indigenous, in Native Americans, what you did. And tell us more about what's happening in East Bali with your project. And how are you embedding that culture, that traditional Balinese culture, and their methods of healing? Were you bringing that to your microbiome studies and then treatments?
Established like this so a lot of my family history was lost from the Chickasaw Nation. When we, in the 1700s and 1800s, when my family came into contact with people that said that they discovered America, we lost so much of our history. And it was in the way that we were very open to accepting everybody, but in the end, we all had to change our names, for example, and we all had to be kind of separated by color. And so I see it like now what the Chickasaw Nation is doing is trying to restore even the language and bring that back. When I look at some of my ancestors' names and I'm like, that's not their names. Wyatt is not the real names. My great-great-great-grandmother, her name is Ishitanahi. Ishitanahi. But they made her change her name to Ann Thomas.
Yeah.
And so it's like when I see how important, like her name Ishitanahi just gives me so much power whenever I hear her name. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is just even the small things with keeping culture is so important. So coming to Bali, And being in East Bali, when I see the little things start to change, where
Mm-hmm.
people start to forget their culture,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, and forgetting their culture in a visual perspective. They
Right.
will always have like the Hinduism and their practice and the ceremonies, but it's the visual perspective of losing so much or even giving up some things just on account of just wanting to make money.
Mm-hmm.
I was very fortunate to be able to go to East Bali on accident.
Mm-hmm.
It was completely on accident. I
Mm-hmm.
was living in Ubud at the time. And after living in Ubud, doing many ceremonies, which is why I have these, and many of them have fallen
Check,
off
check,
over
check,
the
check,
years.
check,
Yeah,
check.
you understand. It's like cash, it's currency, culture
It's
currency.
culture currency.
And so many people, they thought I was traditional Balinese.
Oh
And
yeah.
they were like, hey, hey. And they were speaking to me in
Mm-hmm.
Balinese. I was replying back to them. I love to learn languages.
Yes.
And they found out that I wasn't Balinese.
Mm-hmm.
Obvious, not obvious.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Hey, we come from the original village. Our
Mm-hmm.
ancestors connected to this village that you live in here in Ubud, which was
Mm-hmm.
Badulu, and we want to invite you to come there." Now, at that time, I was still kind of in the Bali Triangle,
Mm-hmm.
so like going around Ubud, Uluwatu, Canggu. So I was like, "How far are you guys?" They said, "Oh, we're 1 hour away from here," and I'm like, "1 hour?"
Yeah.
It's quite far. But I went out of there just because they told me they were the original village of Bali.
Mm-hmm.
They're the original Balinese people. They were the very first people here on the island. And
Mm-hmm.
before that were the Bali dogs. Can you imagine like
Wow.
how the Bali dogs even got here? But before that, so it's really interesting. I went out there, watched a traditional ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. I loved how peaceful it was, and I didn't think about anything else other than the fact that wow, this land is so just peaceful. It's
So
beautiful,
peaceful, right?
and it just felt like I was just lost in time.
Mm-hmm.
Being there, I was lost in time, and I didn't want to leave. And one of the leaders, as I left the ceremony, I was sneaking around the village, just having a look at everything. And what happened is the leader, he was kind of looking around the corner, like,
Mhm.
in Bali, when they try to hide things, that can be quite obvious. So he was just like, and I was like, who is this person following behind me? And he was going around the corners.
Yeah.
And I was like, excuse me. And he was like, hey, can I help you? And actually, he was speaking in Indonesian. And I just said, hey, I'm just looking around this village. It's quite beautiful over here. And so what I did then, he invited me to his house with his family. I sat down, we ate, and I still had some trouble understanding Indonesian before. And and so we just didn't talk. We just looked at each other and looked off into the wilderness.
Mm.
3 years later, or maybe 2.5 years later, they ended up coming to me with an offer, which they don't do. There are no foreigners in the village.
Mhm.
They're not allowed to do anything with foreigners, like when it comes to land or whatsoever. But somehow, after thousands of years, they're just like, "Hey, we want to do something with you." And I'm
Mm.
like, "Okay, that's strange."
That's amazing to see how welcoming they are, the kind of level of compassion and kindness they get. And I feel it's embedded in the Buddhism and Hinduism and the culture here,
Mm,
um, how open they are, and then still kind of impact uninfected by the foreigners that come here and build massively and have different values. I like how you collaborate with locals and also to support, to preserve their culture, to preserve their way of healing, and really work on this beautiful land. And then that east side of Bali is really where it's undeveloped. If you guys know how Bali works, is usually three main spaces, right?
mhm.
Hebubudulobatu Canggu, where a lot of tourists come, and everything else in West and East is pretty much not developed yet. But you have this beautiful, still preserved culture
Very well
that's
preserved.
not that polluted, that's like still intact. So, and it's beautiful to see how you're working on the projects there in the mountains with beautiful views, building sustainably, working on the next level wellness and microbiome clinics, which I really looking forward to hearing more from you.
All right, I can jump into that.
Yeah, maybe a short story about
Sure.
what's happening in the east
Yeah.
villages of
Yeah.
Bali.
So fortunately enough, I was able to secure something out there,
Mm-hmm.
and we get to create an ancient Balinese type of kingdom and really make it into health and like just tune into the
Mm-hmm.
culture visually, so people can really just get a sense of appreciation when they come to Bali. They come to Bali
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people are coming to Bali and they're experiencing the same thing that they're doing back in Miami, back
Mm-hmm.
in Greece, whatever the case is. But now when you come to Bali, you can really come to Bali. And so it's probably going to be one of the biggest wellness resorts that
Amazing.
they're going to be out there. There's going to be, everything centered around health, traditional medicine. I'm really
Mm-hmm.
focused on really like the cultural
Bringing
aspects of
jamus and then things, yeah,
jamus, everything, elixirs. Even
elixirs, right?
we have old ancient manuscripts that are
Mm-hmm.
we're just now translating, that have recipes that come from thousands of years ago that nobody's ever tasted before.
Right. I mean, biodiversity here in this part of Southeast Asia is just enormous, guy. To let you know the story about as Bulardi, and Bulardi was the Italian, I feel,
I don't know.
a scientist that came to Bali in back in 60s and developed and then found out that in mangosteen, which is a specific fruit
Mm-mm.
that grows here naturally, it found a bacteria called Aspergillosis, which is one of the best bacteria for our microbiome and gut health. It's by far one of the best, right? And it basically has roots in Bali. So pretty much when you use a lot of what should I do was like, well, go back to nature and go
That's right.
back to that specific nature, in specifically in East Bali, what a lot of biodiversity brings is this healthy microbiome, this way of you building and I'm so looking
It's about mixing
yeah,
this traditional aspect in with
traditional, yeah.
with current science, right? Because I feel like we need a place to really
Mhm,
ground
mhm.
ourselves in this sense of spirituality, traditional medicine, and facts. And when you
Facts,
in
yeah.
facts, so science fact, right?
Knowledge
Right.
yeah, it has to be there,
Right. And with today's instruments, we can really find out so many things that we thought were an anomaly before. And other things we can just feel, right? And we just know them to be true. I think the biggest thing is just really having a place that really integrates the culture, which we're able to have.
Mhm.
To put things that still involve a lot of the culture and the people that are there and the traditions that are there, and really just have, I mean, we have the best of everything. We have the mountains, the jungle, 3 minutes from the ocean and ocean views. So it's a mix between Ubud, Uluwatu, and Canggu all put together.
All put together.
All put together.
Yeah, and
And
what's the closest beach that is there? Is it
Virgin Beach.
Virgin Beach?
I mean,
Oh,
we have
special.
Chanagasa Beach, but Virgin
Yeah.
Beach is one of the best.
With the silver white sands, right, and turquoise
It's
waters.
beautiful.
Guys, it's just
beautiful.
amazing
Gorgeous.
things to
Yeah,
witness how nature can give so much beauty
100%.
and so much simplicity, right? Well, thank you so much, Brother Sequoia, for coming,
I
joining
appreciate
us
you.
here at the Wellness Expo. Looking forward to seeing your panel as well. And thank you for doing what you're doing, for preserving the culture of indigenous people in Native America, for joining Balinese here to support and continue to celebrate their culture and
It's my
really
pleasure.
the health.
Celebrating them is celebrating ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
suksama.
Yeah, suksmo. Terima kasih.